The beginning of a NIGHTM. My name is Marcus, and what I'm going to tell you today is a story that completely changed my life and proved that sometimes justice comes from where you least expect it. You won't believe what this psychotic HOA president did on my property, but wait until you find out who I really am. This story has plot twists, revenge, and an ending that will leave you jaw-dropped. It all started when I moved to Green Valley Estates, an apparently perfect place in the suburbs of Atlanta. The houses were beautiful, the gardens impeccable, and I thought I had finally found my refuge after years of hard work. I bought one of the largest properties in the community, with a spectacular 2,000 square meter backyard that became my pride and joy. But I soon discovered that living in Green Valley would be very different from what I imagined. The HOA president, a man named Richard Blackstone, ruled that place as if it were his personal kingdom. From day one, he made it clear that he didn't like me. Maybe because my house was bigger than his, or because I didn't bow to his absurd orders, like other residents did. The first First came the ridiculous fines. $50 because my grass was 2 centimeters higher than regulation. $100 because my car was poorly positioned in my own garage. $200 because my fence was a color not approved by the board, even though it was the same color that was there when I bought the house. I paid the fines to avoid conflicts, but Richard interpreted this as weakness. He started showing up at my door every week with new violations. Once he fined me because my dog, a golden retriever named Max, barked at 3 in the afternoon. Apparently, this disturbed the community's peace. Another time, he said my ornamental plants were non-approved invasive species and demanded I remove them within 24 hours. But what irritated me most was how he treated other residents. Richard had his favorites, mainly the older and richer families in the community who could do whatever they wanted without consequences. Meanwhile, anyone he considered undesirable was constantly harassed with fines and threats. The invasion, BGENS. Everything changed on a Friday in October. I was working in my home office when I heard loud voices in my backyard. I looked out the window and couldn't believe what I saw. There were at least 20 people in my backyard, installing tables, chairs, a sound system, and even a giant tent. I ran outside and found Richard supervising everything as if he owned the place. "What the hell is happening here?" I shouted, completely perplexed. Richard looked at me with that arrogant smile I already knew well. "Oh, Marcus, good that you showed up. We're preparing for the community's annual gala party. Your backyard has been selected as the event location." "Selected by whom?" "This is my private property." Actually, Richard pulled a folder from his bag and started flipping through papers. According to Clause 47B of the Community Regulations, in exceptional cases, private areas can be temporarily designated for community events when it's for the greater good of residents. I had never heard of this clause, and I'm sure it didn't exist when I bought the house. "Show me this regulation," I demanded. "Oh, of course. We just approved an update at the last board meeting. You must have missed it. We sent the invitation by email." He knew very well I never received any invitation. The party from HELOU can imagine my outrage. But Richard had everything planned. He told me the party would happen the following Saturday, and that I should be a good neighbor and cooperate. When I threatened to call the police, he laughed and said the local police chief, Jim Crawford, was his personal friend and community member. Besides, Richard continued with that diabolic smile, if you cause problems, I can sue you for obstruction of community activities. The fines can reach $10,000. I felt completely cornered. It seemed like Richard had the entire system in his favor. But what he didn't know is that I had some aces up my sleeve that he would soon discover. During the week, I tried talking to other residents, hoping to find allies. Most were afraid of Richard, but some told me horrible stories. Mrs. Martinez told me Richard had fined her $3,000 because her grandson left a bicycle in the front yard for 2 hours. The young Johnson couple told me Richard threatened them with eviction because they installed a fence for their baby to crawl safely. Apparently, this wasn't in the community's aesthetic standard. The cursed SATURDI arrived, and with it, the real nightmare. At 6 in the morning, trucks started arriving on my street. Not just catering trucks, but trucks with professional sound equipment, a portable stage, chairs for 200 people, and even a truck with portable bathrooms that were installed in my rose garden. Richard appeared wearing a tuxedo, behaving as if he were the king of the world. Marcus, I hope you're excited for the party. It's going to be historic. I was boiling with rage, but decided to document everything. I started filming and photographing every invasion, every damage to my property. Richard noticed and laughed. Feel free to film. Everything we're doing is completely legal. At 5 in the afternoon, guests started arriving. They weren't just community residents. Richard had invited local politicians, businessmen, and even a small group of journalists. He was clearly using my property to promote himself politically. The party was a real spectacle of extravagance. There was a complete open bar, a live band, a dining table with 5-star restaurant food, and Richard at the center of everything, giving speeches about community leadership and vision for the future. The moment of TROTH, but here's where the story gets interesting, folks. Because what Richard didn't know, what nobody in that community knew, is who I really am. During Richard's pompous speeches, I received a phone call. It was my assistant, James. Mr. Thompson, sorry to bother you on the weekend, but we have a problem with the Atlanta project. The HOA president where we're building is causing problems with the permits. Which community? I asked, already suspecting the answer. Green Valley Estates. A guy named Richard Blackstone is blocking our projects and demanding bribes to release construction licenses. Did you see the irony? Richard was literally partying in the backyard of the owner of the company he was trying to extort. For those who haven't understood yet, my full name is Marcus Thompson, and I'm CEO and founder of Thompson Construction Group, one of the largest construction companies in the American Southeast. My company is worth over $200 million, and we have contracts with practically every city in the region, including several projects in Green Valley Estates itself. The bombshell revelazione decided it was time for Richard to find out who he was messing with. I walked to the stage where he was giving another of his arrogant speeches about responsible community development. Excuse me, Richard, I said, interrupting his speech. Can I talk to you for a minute? He was irritated by the interruption. Marcus, we're in the middle of an important presentation. Can you wait? Actually, no, because I have news that will interest everyone here. I took the microphone from his hand, and the entire party fell silent. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Marcus Thompson, and this is my property where you're having this party without my permission." A murmur passed through the crowd. Richard tried to grab the microphone back, but I continued. "But let me tell you who I really am. I'm founder and CEO of Thompson Construction Group. Maybe some of you have heard of the company. We built half the commercial buildings in Atlanta, including the new shopping center that's going to be inaugurated nearby." Richard's face started turning pale. He clearly knew my company. "But the interesting part," I continued, "is that I just discovered that our dear HOA president here has been trying to extort my company, demanding bribes to release construction licenses on projects that would benefit the entire community." The Empire's CIO Lepesitha reaction was immediate and devastating. Guests started whispering among themselves. Many began leaving the party, and Richard was in complete panic. That's a lie," he stuttered. I would never, James," I said on speakerphone. "Can you repeat for everyone here what you told me about Mr. Blackstone's demands?" My assistant's voice echoed through the sound system. "Certainly, Mr. Thompson. Richard Blackstone demanded $50,000 in consulting fees to expedite approvals for the community center project, plus $20,000 monthly in neighborhood improvement contributions, money that would be deposited in his personal account." The silence was deafening. Richard tried to deny it, but James had recordings of all conversations, something we always do in important negotiations. But I wasn't finished. "And there's one more thing you need to know about our dear Richard. He not only tried to extort me, he's been doing this to several residents here. I discovered he created several illegal fines and has been diverting this money to personal accounts." The Ion VSTAGEON. The following days, the story exploded. The journalists who were at the party published everything, and soon a formal investigation was opened. We discovered Richard had embezzled over $300,000 in fines and improvement fees over 5 years, but the cherry on top was when we discovered that the regulation he used to justify his actions was completely fake. Richard had created a fraudulent document and forged the administrative board's signatures. This turned everything into a federal crime. The FBI got involved in the case when they discovered Richard was also using his position to facilitate money laundering through overpriced community improvement contracts. My company, ironically, was being investigated as a victim, not as a suspect. The final FAL Richard was arrested 3 weeks after the party. The charges included fraud, extortion, document forgery, embezzlement, and money laundering. The judge denied bail because Richard tried to flee to Mexico when he learned he would be indicted. During the investigation, we discovered Richard owed over $2 million in unpaid taxes and had used the money stolen from residents to finance a luxury lifestyle that included a secret apartment in Miami and a $200,000 boat. All residents who were illegally fined received full restitution, plus compensation for moral damages. I used my influence to ensure competent lawyers represented the victims for free. The new ERA with Richard out of the way, the community was completely transformed. We organized democratic elections for a new board, established transparent rules, and created a system where all important decisions need majority approval from residents. I was elected temporary president. irony of fate, and my first action was to revoke all the absurd rules Richard had created. No more fines for grass 2 centimeters high, no more ridiculous restrictions on fence colors, and definitely no more emergencies that justified using private properties for parties. We used part of the money recovered from Richard to truly improve the community. New playground for children, community center renovation, and an emergency fund to help residents in financial difficulties. The lesson later on this story taught me several important lessons. First, tyrants like Richard only get power because most people are afraid to confront them. Second, documenting everything is essential. Without the recordings and photographs, it would be my word against his. Third, sometimes justice takes time, but when it arrives, it's complete. Richard was sentenced to 12 years in prison and had to pay over $3 million in restitution and fines. He lost his house, his assets, and his reputation, all because he couldn't control his thirst for power and didn't imagine he was messing with the wrong person. The most ironic thing of all, Richard discovered who I was in the worst possible way when it was too late to turn back. If he had just been a normal HOA president, doing his job honestly, none of this would have happened. He could have even benefited from the projects my company brought to the region, the perfect Eon Dion Day. 2 years later, Green Valley Estates is recognized as one of the best communities in the region. We have a united community, fair rules applied equally to everyone, and an environment where families really want to live and raise their children. My company completed several projects in the area, including a new community center that serves not only our community but the entire neighborhood. We created jobs, increased property values, and proved that responsible development benefits the entire community. And Richard, well, he's still in prison, probably planning how he's going to explain to other inmates that he was brought down for trying to party in the wrong person's backyard. The moral of the story is simple. No matter how powerful you think you are, there's always someone bigger. And when you use that power to harm others, the fall is inevitable and devastating. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories of people who discovered the hard way that they were messing with the wrong person. Until next time, folks.